Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Corbin Hostler, joined by Devin Dumlake O'Donnell. We are here with the NRG Championship Series in Madison, Wisconsin, where we have come to the final round of our tournament today, the Swiss portion, that is. This is Team Trios, round 7 of 7. The top 8 is on the line. That is what we have on tap for you. I cannot wait to watch this play out. We've been watching Standard, Modern, and Legacy all day. It's been some great action so far, right, Devin?
Oh yeah, and we have two really good teams here playing it out for a top 8 slot. We mentioned, we were talking a little bit about this during the break. The breakers kind of
Hmm.
got a little bit awkward here. There is 8 teams who are X1 or better, but then there's 4 teams that are X11. So as of right now, the top 2 tables have drawn. Presumably that's 4 slots that are
Right?
guaranteed, which means we have 4 win-ins, and we are going to bring you one of those win-ins right now. I believe our players are shuffling up. They are just about ready to get down there. But yeah, this is going to be a fantastic match that we have here.
A lot on the line in this tournament. Reminder that this is a $10,000 prize pool team trio showdown, and that all the winning players from the winning team will qualify for the champs, the $35,000 prize pool at the end of the year. They will qualify for that. The top 2 teams will also qualify for their regional championship. That's 6 seats that can be given out. So there is a lot that these players are playing for as we head into round 7, the last round of the day, for all the teams still in contention. And this is just the end of the weekend. We had a 10K modern event yesterday. We had a huge shield event yesterday. It has been busy here in Madison with the NRG series. And all right, I think it is time to go down to the table. On your left, it is Daniel Weiser on Gruel Aggro. On your right is Raja Suleiman on Golgari mid-range. 2 players you know, 2 decks you should know because you should get into standard. It is fun, and we are ready to go.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side of your screen, Daniel Weiser playing Gruel Aggro. This is, I mean, in it, it is an aggro deck at its heart. It is trying to get the game over with as quick as possible and is utilizing a lot of new Bloomburrow cards. One of them that Daniel has just cast, a card that we've seen a lot in the Golgari midrange deck, and that is Innkeeper's Talent.
Mhm.
This now normally under in the Golgari deck, it's trying to set up this splitter twin combo that we've kind of discussed earlier with the Vraska Betrayal Sting to kind of set up a 1-2 kill. In this deck, it's a lot more about utilizing the first level, putting counters on
Right.
creatures, and making sure that the creatures get a little bit big. Now we see a Deep Cavern bat here from Raja, and the hand from Daniel was Monstrous Rage, Emberheart Challenger, and a whole bunch of lands. And I believe Daniel may have also picked up a copy of Copperline Gorge. So not a lot of action here for Daniel, as that the
Yeah.
bat takes really the Daniel's only good play.
Yeah, just levels up the talent and passes back. Innkeeper's Bat has been such a cool card. It's a throwback to, I guess, maybe Mesmeric Fiend is probably the original. When this comes into play, take a card from their hand. When it leaves play, give it back to them. But Deep Cavern Back, you attach Flying and Lifelink to it. It's found such a nice home and standard, giving range to a bunch of these black mid range decks.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I think Dan picked up another land here. So, we're going to spend 4
Oh
mana
wow,
on. Okay. Oh, right. We're not going to level up the talent. We're going to spend 4 mana
yeah.
to animate the land, and the land's going to get a counter from the talent. But I mean, this is still really brutal here for Daniel because the Gliss is going to attack and just take care of that Innkeeper's talent. So, Daniel, a bit of a rough draw here, drawing a whole bunch of lands that is not going to help. I'm trying to think of. We would like to talk about from positions like this, like
Mhm.
what does a game look like where Daniel wins? And I don't really know. It probably has to involve something like a questing druid, where questing druid finds 2 spells. Maybe that can find you some more gas. But yeah, right now it's looking really rough here for Daniel.
Yeah, the Restless Ridgeline, for those curious, it becomes a 3/4 red and green dino until end of turn. It's still a land. When it attacks, another target attacking creature gets +2/+0, and it untaps. Not a very good attacker by itself, not going to win you the game. So we start looking to see what kind of catch-up cards does Daniel have, right? Does he have anything that can get him back into the game? Does it involve removing the bat first to unlock that? which would involve removal, which his deck doesn't have in abundance for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think it really starts with questing Druid, right? Questing, I think he just drew another land. So
Oh man.
I'm pretty sure Daniel kept Monstrous Rage, Innkeeper's Talent, Challenger, 4 lands, and has only drawn lands the whole game. So yeah, really, really rough year for Daniel. I mean, I guess Consolation Prize, you can attack with the Ridge line, get in for a little bit of damage, but can't imagine that that is really going to matter. I guess you can play defense where you
Mhm.
can animate the ridge line, block, and then after blocks monstrous rage the ridge line. But I mean that's kind of, I guess you don't have to, right? Because the it's only a 3/4, so you can just eat the sentinel without casting the rage. But I mean the go for the throat is note information, so that's gonna take care of the ridge line. And yeah, this is not looking great for Daniel.
It's certainly not the start you want to see if you are sitting in the aggro seat where you're not able to really aggro at all. So maybe not the showcase of standard we wanted, but hey, we can look at the power of the bat here, right? This is what really tore apart the key card from Daniel's hand, kind of enabled uh, Raja to get out to this lead. And now, of course, this Golgari deck is just packed with value once you get to this point of the game. So we can assume he's going to clean this up here. Cossack Bronco coming down. I think another land just
True
for
another
good
land.
measure.
Yep. Just in case you didn't have enough, Dan, here you go. Here's land
Get
number
them all out
7.
of the way.
Yep.
There we go. Still had all these
Well,
lands, did Daniel. And that's game one over to Raja. So we get super quick here in the first game of standard. Maybe we'll get a chance to take a look at their sideboards. I'm Corbin Hostler with Devin Doomwake O'Donnell. It is the final round of Swiss here in Madison as we are playing for our top 8.
yeah. What I wanted to do, I don't know if we can, if we're going to go back down to the match, but I wanted to see if we can take a look at modern.
Mm-hmm.
I know, maybe chat doesn't want to see Nadu, but there's a storyline here where Garrick Alford played in our modern showdown yesterday, and Garrick did lose in the finals, but over the course of the day, he was 6-2 against Nadu. Now, as of right now, not looking the best here, as we see a halfling potentially lining up an uncounterable Nadu.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're trying to see if Garrett can continue his sort of, I guess, dominance in this matchup. And maybe not looking super great here. We see a subtlety is going to take care of this Nadu. But yeah, and a lot of the games that we saw yesterday where Garrick was winning, a lot of those games involved Wrath of the Skies.
That's
And
right.
that is one of the better cards in this matchup because not only does it clean up all of the small creatures, mana dorks, and gives you less Nadu triggers on the combo turn. It also cleans up Urza Saga and the Shuko.
That's right. Yeah, it's huge for that reason. It looked like he does have a land. He picked up another subtlety. I guess if you can get to 4 mana next turn, you could hard cast it, but the Nadu's likely to just come back down onto the battlefield. So Garrett got a little bit of a hard choice here. I mean, it's easy enough to throw away the first subtlety and a force of negation to delay that Nadu. Doing it a second time might be a little too much of a drain on your resources, but he also might have might not have another choice. So, all right, he's going to think it through here, figure out if he can do anything with his mana this turn. Taps
I
4.
think Garrick might be lining up a Wrath here, which is only going to kill the Delighted Halfling. Interesting. Yeah, maybe
Wow,
we are
you're
going to
right.
line it
Okay.
up.
Wrath of the
And
Skies.
yeah, I wonder if that's just maybe Garrick has a second copy of Wrath and is okay just kind of trading one for one here. It does look like maybe Garrick is stumbling a little bit on mana, but yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah. Okay,
All right,
I
subtlety
guess
it
we got
again.
more subtlety.
Oh, I wonder if this is a situation where Garrick is going to try to kill the Wall of Roots and
Look at that.
strand the Nadu because he's been noticing that Ellenbogen has been missing land drops. So the Flayed is going to take care of the wall, and that Nadu that Ellenbogen topped now is not going to be able to be cast. And to be honest, even if it was able to be cast, there's nothing in play for Ellenbogen to equip. So
Right?
actually, kind of a sick line here for Garrick.
Yeah, definitely a little risky because obviously, if Ellenbogen just draws a land and just plays Nadu again, it's you've done all of that for nothing. In one sense, but on the other hand, what else are you going to do? Those are the cards you have. If you're Garrick, you go dealt 3 subtleties in your hand. Do something with it. So it looks like a very quick pass back, though. So not sure actually what Garrick picked up if he's going to be able to capitalize. I think
Beat
if
down.
he'd hit a land there, he'd actually had Flage available, right? So that would have been ideal.
Yeah, there is so what Garrick doesn't know is so these Nadu decks, they play one copy of Volatile Storm Drake, which is the Gilded Drake throwback. And unfortunately for Garrick, that Storm Drake is in Andrew's hands. So if Garrick goes for this Flage, Andrew is going to say, "Thank you very much. I would like that Flage."
And that
And
is what he's doing.
yeah, we're fetching and we're going for the Flage. So Garrick, looks to be pretty good here, commanding position. But the question
Yeah.
is, can Garrick answer his own Flage?
Wow. Well, I suppose at least he clears the haywire might before it goes over to Ellenbogen's side. Interesting development too, because obviously if Ellenbogen untaps him with that Flage and attacks, its trigger can get rid of the Drake. So it's just a complete blowout, the ultimate blowout all around, really. So um, interesting way for this game to go. That's for sure. Not exactly the lines you expect to see out of Nadu, but there it is. And Garrick knows what's up. Just hands it right over.
Yeah, now I guess the consolation prize if you're Garrick is that Storm Drake does have hexproof from activated and triggered
Oh,
abilities.
good point.
So the Storm Drake can't die to the Flage, but presumably Ellen Bogan probably doesn't want to just wants to go face
Yeah.
anyways. Also, Flage with a Shuko on it. Did you think we'd ever see that one on camera?
Oh, that's common tech out of the Nadu deck, of course.
Now, when is Nadu going to start playing Flage? That's what we got to ask ourselves.
At that point, we're so deep into the Nadu mirror meta that we just got to stop. We got to go back to the beginning.
So I think Garrick actually has a second Wrath here, and with the tune goes up to 2, and then can Wrath for 1, and then spend 3 energy to put the Flage back into the graveyard. So if Garrick does have the
There
second
you go.
Wrath, which he does, it's actually a pretty good sequence here. And that's going to blow up everything. That means that Garrick is going to have nothing, neither is Ellenbogen, but that Flage, more importantly, is going to go
Right.
back to Garrick's graveyard.
And this kind of puts us back into a state of not much going on. Ellenbogen still doesn't have a third land, by the way. And now the Shuko is gone as well. So Flage is not coming back. There's not enough cards to escape it yet. But I think you were able to deduce by what Garrick did back on, turn 3, where he was using the first Wrath to get rid of that halfling, that he had a second one. So this was Garrick's playing toward this line for the game, right? This has been the plan, was to build towards that second Wrath, and he felt like he needed to burn the first one to do that, and it worked out perfectly because now you see him in a position where, regardless of whether or not Bogan actually hits that third land here or not, and it looks like he finally did. Garrick at least has a chance to be in the game, right? He's got a couple of cards, on the way, lurking in the graveyard, I would say. And if he can just avoid getting comboed in the short term, he's got a chance to take over and turn the corner here.
Yeah, with 3 cards in the graveyard, believe it or not, one of Garrick's best draws is just a fetch land because
Yeah,
fetch land can go surveil to the graveyard. That's 5 immediately for Flage. So, something along those lines that could get the Flage going. And, as we mentioned, does not want to give the Nadu deck a ton of time because the more time you give them, the more time you give them to draw out of this. And yeah, I mean, Ellenbogen recognizes he just kind of has to slam it, and that is going to be met with a counter spell. And that's also good for Garrick too, because putting an
right.
extra card in the graveyard, again, better, getting towards that Flage, which is important. And there's the fetch land. Excuse me.
Huge draw right there, plus the counter spells there as well. So it's coming out, right? Flage is hitting the board. Ellenbogen having hit a counter spell now back up against the wall. Now, that said, obviously it's a Nadu deck. All he has to do is play Nadu and start targeting it with Shuko, and crazy things can happen. But for the moment, Garrick, who went 6-2, as you said earlier, against Nadu yesterday, looking like he's in a decent spot to try to pick up the first game here.
Yeah, and this Surveil likely just wants to try and find maybe a One Ring or, I mean, maybe a counter spell at this point. You would keep a lot of cards here for Garrick, just something to 1-for-1 because you already have the threat in the form of Flage. And Garrick is going to go ahead and bin a Tamio, which does make sense
Mm-hmm.
because that one's a little bit slow. Doesn't really have a lot of time for that one. So Flage going to hit the battlefield, and yeah, that's going to deal 3 to Ellenbogen, putting him down to 15. Can attack for 9 next turn. So Ellenbogen is on a 2-turn clock. Really needs to find another copy of Nadu. I believe the hand is Halfling, Court of Calling, and
And
Springheart
Tucko.
Nantuko,
Yeah.
which is not I was gonna say it's not bad, but if you play Halfling Nantuko this turn, Garrick is just gonna kill the Nantuko with the Flage because Ellenbogen kind of needs to play creatures to set up for the cord, but the creatures he plays are just gonna die to the Flage anyways.
Yeah, so if you think it through, he's probably losing one creature to Flage here. You could theoretically take the hit. Garrick only has one card in hand, so maybe if you're Ellen Bogan, you're looking 2 turns ahead, right? If you determine obviously I can't do anything this turn, and then I'm going to get a hit in on me. Well, I guess maybe the best I can do is to untap with at least one additional creature in play to try to set up a cord. Because if you're able to get that cord, then you'll be able to Nadu and attempt to go off Chuko. Nothing's super clean or super easy at this point, but you're trying to play to your outs and find it, and we'll see if that's the direction Ellen Bogan goes, and more or less it is. He does it this way though by bestowing the Nantuko onto the half lane. He actually gets to decide to keep that creature, right?
Yeah, this is really smart too because if you're in a situation where, say, Garrick attacks with the Flage, kills the Halfling, that leaves you with the Nantuko. So then Nantuko plus 3 lands. If Ellenbogen can draw a fetch land, that's 2 tokens plus an additional mana source. That's cord for 3, and that would be enough. But Garrick with the second Flage off the top, that's going to kill the Halfling and the Nantuko. So that is going to
Yeah.
cut that option available here for Garrick to be, or excuse me, for Andrew to top deck that fetch land.
Well, and that was huge too, because by bestowing, Ellen Bogan was trying to, guarantee that he'd at least have one creature left over
Yep.
at the end of this to make that court easier. Now he doesn't. Now it's basically Nadu or bust. It's not Nadu. It seems like it's bust. So that was a good attempt on his part to set up court calling, but an even better job by Garrett to control the board. And he takes down game one, as, by the way, did his teammates, Max Smith and Roger Suleiman, both going up a game in their respective matches. Welcome back to the booth with Corbin Hosser, joined by Devin O'Donnell here in round 7. And these guys are pretty close to punching their ticket now after that, aren't they?
Yeah, we saw all 3 of the same team members go to win the first game, excuse me, and it's really going to be up to the team, Ellenbogen's team, to see if they can recover. I think we might want to go back to standard. I mean,
That's what
that
I'm in
first
for.
game was not the best showing for Daniel Weiser, so hopefully, maybe we can have a little bit of a better showing to take a look at that. But let's go and see what is happening. So I see Daniel's got 2 creatures in play, which is better than the first game. So things have got to be going somewhat well.
Yeah, hopping right into this game, deep into it. Looks like we've got the Deep Cavern Bat we've talked about for Raja. There's a Go for the Throat to remove, I believe that's a Heartfire hero. I'm not positive though.
Yep,
One of
Heartfire Hero.
Daniel's creatures hitting the bin. Okay, well, here we go. Passing back. Both players down on cards. There's like 1 card in Roger's hand and now up to 2 in Daniel's hand. So both players obviously have traded resources, gone back and forth here. Monastery Swift Sphere versus Deep Cavern Bat.
Yeah, and this, Raja all the way down to 7 already. So looks like Daniel had a bit more of an aggressive start this time. Raja was able to trade, looks like a couple of Go for the Throats to be able to trade for some of those, but they still chipped in for a little bit of damage. That Heartfire Hero too. What I like, that card is very, very nice because there's a ton of ways to target your creatures in this deck. Innkeeper's
Yeah.
Talent, Monstrous Rage, kind of the 2 that come to mind the most, and Manifold Mouse as well. And it is a way for, if your opponent doesn't remove it immediately and you get a couple of turns with it, and then they go to kill it, it's going to deal them a ton of damage.
And here we see one of these extremely aggressive and explosive plays out of the Gruul aggro deck. Just Monstrous Rage onto my Swift Sphere plus a bunch, because Monstrous Rage is one of the premier pump spells in Standard and allows you to jump in for a bunch of damage there. So, all right, Raja's going to have to try to dig out of this. It does have a Restless Cottage over there, and that could be a thing. And it's a Fountain Port as well hitting the battlefield.
Yeah, the other card that we didn't really get to see all that much of last game was Manifold Mouse. If we could get that one up on the screen real quick for the folks at home. This one is kind of interesting where it is very, very good in, there's kind of like mice, the creature decks that play a ton of mice, the Boros decks, which are, for lack of a better term, Bloomburrow constructed decks. But it's
That's
actually
right.
pretty good in this deck too, because not you don't really have a ton of mice, but you have the best ones. Both The Emberheart Challenger and the Heartfire Hero are both very, very good because they get boost or excuse me, they get bonuses when you target them. And Manifold Mouse, if you offspring it, you can actually set up this cool line where you target the Heartfire Hero twice, give it double
Hmm.
strike and trample,
Right.
similar to the Challenger as well. So a lot of cool stuff you can do with that.
A lot of play to the Gruul aggro deck, honestly, to any of these red-based aggro decks in Standard. That Monstrous Rage ties a lot of them together, but as you just laid out, Bloom Burrow has injected a lot of new play into archetypes that we thought we were somewhat familiar with. And obviously, Golgari has been a deck in Standard, basically going back forever. But this particular iteration, going back a year or so, people have been jamming these cards. Deep Cavern Bat has been a big part of it. And it's keeping Raja in this one to an extent, but he is pretty far behind now. Access to a creature land, a fountain port, though, a lot to consider here. So the question is now, if you're Daniel, you're at 17 life, you've got a big creature in play, and your opponent is down to 4. How do you close things out from here?
I don't know, Corbin. Raja's got a Gyarados in place, so anything could happen.
That's difficult to beat.
Yeah, I'm not beating Gyarados this game. So we've seen attack from the Ridgeline. Ridgeline, what's cool about this is it's going to pump the Swift Spear, which already has trample. So Fountain
Mhm.
Port, as good as it is, only makes 1/1 creatures, which do not block creatures with trample that well. So Raja kind of needs a removal spell to sort of not die this turn because the Swift Spear is 2 power, 1 from its base, 1 from the roll, and then I believe the Ridgeline gives an additional +2.
Right.
So we can
We've got
animate the
like, yeah.
cottage. Okay. So I guess the
Oh,
cottage.
okay.
Wait, what happened? I'm confused. What's going on here?
I,
The Swiss Spear was tapped, was it not? Huh. I don't know. Maybe there was a motion where Daniel hadn't decided attackers, and then the ridge untaps. Right. Thank you, chat. Right. So it is attacking. It's just kind of confusing. Okay. Yeah, the ridge untaps
yeah.
the creature. So
So we've
the Swift
got
Spear is still attacking.
is that Misty's Gyarados too? That is pretty good. Well, we've got 2 creatures to block with here to try to survive if you're Raja. And if you survive, things can get more interesting. Obviously, you want to tap, your deck can serve you up a lot of good stuff. Fountain Port can maybe do something, although it's better when you have life to work with. One swamp in hand is not getting him anywhere. So he's agonizing over these blocks. This is probably his last chance to get back in the game. It is going to be over if he cannot find a way out of this combat and then find something off the top of his deck. But
Yeah, I
that's
mean
not
this
bad.
block.
At least remove a creature.
Yep, this block makes a lot of sense from Raja. You got to trade for that Swift Spear because the fact that the Swift Spear has trample makes it a lot scarier for some of Daniel's top decks. So yeah, that's going to remove that. The bat's going to put Raja back up to 5. Now, Fountain Port is good, but the problem is Raja down to I believe 5. Going to be a little bit more awkward, and honestly, that's one of Daniel's better draws. Questing Druid's going to peel 2 more cards off the top. Looks like a land and a Tyvar stand. Well, those are not the best.
At least you don't have to draw them now.
Yeah.
In that order in this in this time period, this time frame. All right, land into play tap. We'll go ahead and cast the other side, and we'll
Yeah, no reason
exile
to
the
cast
Tavares.
no reason to cast that. It doesn't pump the questing druid, so because questing druid only triggers off of non-green spells.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're gonna put the Gyarados back into play, and looks like I think a bat from Raja was drawn. So this is kind of a weird game where it's very tense. Raja doesn't have a lot going on, and is at the mercy of the top of Daniel's deck. Maybe I mean you can imagine if Daniel finds something like a second copy of Questing Druid that'll pump the Druid, give him 2 more looks at potential spells to find. But yeah, Daniel is these red decks, they do have a lot of not great draws from this spot. You can imagine like Hardfire Hero, Monastery
Mm-hmm.
Swift Spear. I guess even Might of the Meek is okay because it cantrips and pumps the Druid. So not a ton of bad top decks, but does need to find one of the good ones here.
That was a spell. Didn't catch which one, but it is a spell. Raja does not have a spell in hand. Raja has a forest in hand and was working that hard for all it was worth. Looking at forest stacks up and down to try to convince Daniel that I've got a card. Don't attack me. But the attack does come in. The token jumps in front, but no creature land activation this time out of Daniel.
Yeah, you mentioned Daniel did draw a spell. I wonder. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so we're gonna frenzy the deep cavern bat. That's gonna take. Oh, this is such a good sequence. That's gonna pump the druid, which means
Yeah.
that the token from the fountain port token dies. That's gonna give you back the manifold mouse, which you have enough mana to offspring post combat because you got a discount on the frenzy. And that's
Yeah.
going to pump the questing druid again. It's going to give Daniel two bodies for next turn. Like this is that was that was one of Daniel's better top decks. I mean, any removal spell I guess would do it, but as you mentioned earlier, it's not a ton of those in Daniel's deck, and that is one of the better ones.
Yeah, that was huge. And now it's Raja who's in need of drawing something very quickly. Now, what has been working in his favor is that as he was, at least in these previous turns, kind of struggling along in the board and the bats were poking, chipping in, and at least he was gaining a little bit of life. Now, however, that was the play that really swung it. Now there's three creatures in play for Daniel. You're at 5 life. If you're Raja, that's a big one, though.
It's a good top deck.
If he can
Shieldred.
survive this turn at 5 life, and I haven't looked at math to figure out if he can, he has a Restless Cottage to block next turn. He'll gain life off of the shield
Hmm.
grid. He's got the Deep Cavern Bat back to block here. This is a huge turn for Daniel because, as we know, Shieldred the Apocalypse gets out of control extremely quickly in any format it's in.
All right. So what happens for Daniel if you animate the ridge line? Do you have enough mana? One, two, three, four. So you have enough mana to go animate the ridge line, use the village to pump one of the mice. So the mouse would be a 2/3. Give the same mouse both double strike and trample, and then you could pump that mouse with the ridge line. So if you did that, that would be one, two from the village, four from the ridge line. That would be 4 power double strike trample plus the other attackers. Say the Shieldred gets in front of the 4 power double striker, that means 3 tramples over. The bat chump blocks the questing druid, and then an additional 4 points of damage. That's 7. I believe 7 coming through with Raja gaining 1 going to 6. So I believe if my math is correct, check and correct me if I'm wrong. I think that might be a lethal attack.
Yeah, the math seems pretty good, and it looks like Daniel might have reached the same conclusion you did because he has in fact turned them sideways, trigger my ridge line, and Raja. It was a great draw. It just might have come exactly one turn too late.
So Daniel did not activate the village, which I wonder if that means he drew a spell. Because he could have not tapped the village and had 2 mana left over, one to activate the village. So looks like we are going to combat. I mean, most spells would do it. Any pump spell like Monstrous Rage or anything like that would also pump up the mouse and effectively be the same thing as activating the village. So we'll have to see if Daniel drew a spell here.
Yeah, you would certainly think that tapping the his pump land would indicate that. Just kind of calmly sits here, waits for Raja to move to blocks. Raja knows that this is even if we make it out of this combat, things could be problematic. But the fact that he turned everything sideways is not necessarily a great sign. But all right, here we go. We've declared blocks. We'll see where things go from here.
That
Okay,
one
we
is
remember the untap,
untapped.
sure.
So even right now, let's assume that one got both double strike and trample. That means one is coming through because it's 6 - 5 is one,
Right.
2, 3, 4, 5. That does have Raja going to 1 because Raja's gaining 1 on the attack.
Wow.
So if there's nothing here from Daniel, Raja's going to fall down to 1. Now, to be fair,
He loses
Daniel,
his, yeah.
yeah, Raja, lost all of his creatures, and Daniel probably can't lose this game
There we
anyways.
go.
But
Well, the question is if there was a combat there that allowed Raja to keep Shieldred, right? Because if you're able to keep Shieldred, maybe keep a comment, keep the board clear, just get a turn with it. You're able to turn the corner, maybe get to the top of your deck, find some help. Doesn't happen. No. Instead, we see things going back the other way. With it looks like this match is still going. I think maybe we can take a look at these standard deck lists to get a glance at the sideboards. But we've this match is still very much up in the air. Remember, this is round 7 here at the Energy Championship Series in Madison. Both of these teams playing with a shot at the top 8, they hope. And that's where everyone's trying to get. We were playing for $10,000 this weekend. Regional championship invites, NRG championship invites, which comes at the end of the season. It's a $35,000 prize pool. All of these players are trying to qualify for by accumulating points over the course of the season or just winning this one. That works as well. So a lot on the line. And this is the round that is going to give us the top 8 that we will finish the weekend with.
Yeah, the breakers lined up kind of weird where the first, we talked about this earlier. The first two tables drew, and then the next four tables, there were 8 X1s or better, and then 4 X11s. So the X11s kind of messed up the math a little bit on the draws. But yeah, I think the legacy match might be in game number 3. I want to take a look because we haven't seen the legacy matchup yet, and it looks like they are just about to start game number 3. So why don't we take you down there? Matthias Hunt versus Max Smith. Both these players playing the menace of the format, Blue Black
That's right.
Demir Rescaminator.
Yeah, this is the one that everyone has been talking about in Legacy, where we can play Grief to discard our cards to reanimate / tear apart your hands, or we can just bring all of this in a shell together. That works out very well, and there it is, as we talked about. It's a Grief. Okay, so
And
revealing a hand. So keep in mind, by the way, these players are in game 3. They're playing most popular deck in the format, or at least one of the most well known in the format. That means they know what they're doing, right? They Legacy Seats and Team Trios events are probably pretty big fans of Legacy. They know what's going on with this deck and in the mirror, and that's what makes here deep in game 3 so interesting. There comes Grief again, and everything hits the bed.
yeah, that was a tough start here if you are on the side of Max Smith. That was kind of as good as you could draw it up here for Matthias, where you have the Grief, take care of the Graveyard Hate, and then the Reanimate to the Grief to take care of the removal spell for the actual Grief itself. So couldn't really draw it up any better if you're Matthias. Now, Max Leftovers looks to be a Daze, a Brainstorm, and an Underground Sea, excuse me. So doesn't really have either the reanimation spell or the entomb, and I think an animate dead might have been the
I
pickup.
think it's an animate dead, yeah.
Okay, so that's half of the puzzle at least. And we'll have to see. It'd be a very interesting if Matthias cycles this troll, which he is doing. Mac does have the option to animate dead Matthias's troll,
That's true.
which with Matthias on 16, the troll would be what, 5 power? It's a 6 power creature normally, right? Yeah, it's a 6/5 normally. So the troll would be a 5 power creature with Matthias on 16. Oh, well, Matthias just has his own reanimate.
Oh, we've got a Daze here for Mac, though, is going to prevent that reanimate from resolving. That's huge because that would have probably just sealed it up if Matthias was able to have the 2 creatures in play after all of that. But instead, Mac Smith is, in fact, going to have perhaps a window here and is even able to fire off a Brainstorm.
Yeah, Brainstorm is looking at, I think, is that another Dark Betrayal? Yeah, I think we did find a Dark Betrayal. So Mac's hand is Grief, Dark Betrayal plus and Animate Dead, excuse me. So Grief is going to take a look at the hand. Interesting.
What?
So Matthias did have the Brazen Barber to be able to bounce the troll if Mac went for
Yeah.
the Animate Dead. So Mac is going to go ahead and remove that Barber and presumably land Animate Dead on that troll. And we are this is a race, all right.
Well, this is wild, right? This was a game where Matthias Hunt had the absolute perfect start. The nightmare if you were playing against it, Grief hand where you get griefed and then griefed again and griefed again. And somehow at the end of all of that, it's Max Smith who's done the reanimation. So this is, I mean, just it's a legacy, right? It's a legacy, baby. We love it. And it's a psychic frog for Matthias, but Troll's going to get on in there. You won't be blocking that thing. It is a clock.
Yeah, Troll's going to get in there for 5, and that Troll has to be blocked by at least 3 creatures. So this is going to be an interesting race. We will have to see if there is a way that Matthias can kind of try to close out this race before the troll gets the job done. Maybe you can shove on the psychic frog here. There's 3 cards in hand. You could make, say, the psychic frog 4 power, hit for 7. That, I mean, seven's a magic number. Mac is at 14. So
Yeah.
interesting to see if Matthias wants to go for that.
Yeah, and this is the questions that get posed with Psychic Frog of knowing when it is correct to go all in on it, to go aggressive versus, hey, I have a Fatal Push in my hand. I have everything else. And it looks like that's what we're seeing here. Fatal Push is going to be discarded to Psychic Frog, put a 1/1 counter on it, and there goes the Force of Will. And here comes the attack. Orcish Bowmasters, though, out of
Ooh.
Max Smith is a pretty big one here, I think. Just making blockers pretty important if you're able to get in any kind of blocks.
Yeah, that one's going to be tough because the Bowmasters is going to be able to trade for the grief.
Right.
So Mac is likely going to deal 1 to Matthias and then double block the grief would be my assumption.
And
We'll
that puts
see.
Matthias at a multiple of 5, right? If that moves him from 11 to 10.
Right, that's huge. That 1 damage from the Bowmasters is massive. So Matthias can exile cards to the frog to have that happen. Now, I wonder if Mac is also considering not blocking with the grief. Or not. Okay, well, the grief is not going to be able to be blocked because we have fatal push on the Bowmasters. So that's going to be 6 damage coming across. That's going to put Mac down to 8. Matthias going to draw a card, and then that would actually be enough, right? Because next turn you can just discard the card in your hand plus the card you draw, and that would be
Right.
lethal. But Mac's going to find a brainstorm. What do we find?
Um,
Not quite. So there's land psychic frog, but you can only keep one of these cards. So it looks like Mac is not going to be able to play that psychic frog, and I believe that means that we are gonna. I think that's it. I think we're done here.
yeah, I think you might be right. That would, if it goes that way, give just the first win of this match. Remember, this is team trio, so it takes 2 match wins out of the 3 going on between you and your teammates to take it all down. And as you can see, these players are deep. We have 2 games, 2 of these 3 matches already into game 3, including this one. So Matthias trying to figure it out here. Max Smith just cards down, hands down, looking on.
Yeah, and Matthias maybe doing some calculations whether or not. I mean, obviously, if Matthias goes for it and Mac did draw a copy of either Fatal Push or Dark Betrayal, it's pretty bad. But also, he has to weigh the decision of like what happens if I don't go for it.
Right. And
So
it doesn't get better.
yeah, I don't know if it's going to get any better because you are kind of just dead on board to the troll here, right? Because I
Yeah.
think we have an updated life totals. So
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And there we go. He goes for it. He concludes that that is the right decision, and it earns him a handshake. Matthias Hunt picking it up, and that means it will take one more win from his team. Daniel Weiser is going to try to give it to him. We're going to go over to standard right now, where Weiser is shuffling up for game 3 with Raja Suleiman. We showed you, I think we've gotten actually to both games of this standard match so far. We watch Raja just kind of roll with Golgari in the first one, and then Daniel fight back with a really interesting Gruul game in the second one. Meanwhile, Andrew Ellenbogen and his Nadu list, I have evened it up with Garrett Alford and are heading to game 3 over there at Just Sky Energy. So I think we might get a chance to take a look at the standard sideboards here before we hop into this critical game 3. And Doom, there's what Daniel Weiser's working with.
yeah, this deck is super cool. We talked a little bit about the Heartfire Hero plus Ember Heart Challenger interaction with the pump spells, which there's Might of the Meek, Monstrous Rage, Tyvar Stand, Innkeeper's Talent, and Demonic Ruckus. So a lot of ways to kind of utilize targeting your creatures for additional value, and then back that up with the fast pressure from Monastery Swift Spear. Monstrous Rage plus Swift Spear is fantastic. Also, Monstrous Rage plus Manifold Mouse is kind of sick. Where there's just a lot of good synergies here. It almost feels like I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the heroic like blue white heroic
Yeah.
decks back in standard, it feels a lot like that the way this deck is structured.
Well, and that's interesting you bring that up because they, I think, designed some of the mechanics in Bloomburrow kind of based off of that, right? The
Yep.
value mechanic or whatever it's called, that it functions kind of similarly to heroic. And yeah, those heroic decks were cool because keep in mind, blue white is like always a control deck, and that was
Yeah.
a case of turning it into an aggro deck. So it's fun to see. Now, Gruul, a little more of what you expect, but you're right, it plays out very similarly. So yeah, maybe we can take a look over at Raj's list. Now, the Golgari deck's a little more traditionally go right? As a rock deck. You even see the Lilianos of the Veil but this is a rock deck with a bit of a combo finish, as we noted with the Innkeeper's Talent and the Vraska's Sting. So that's what players are playing towards. But now we're in game three. We're deep into the sideboards. If you're Raja, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, this particular deck list from Raja is a little bit less of the like the normal. Go, Raja plays a lot of what we like to call Golgari Rajas, and this is less Raja than normal Golgari Rajas. It's got an actual combo in it. It's got some removal spells, but yeah, it's a little less dirtling and usually just trying to set up the 1-2 combo. But as far as this matchup is concerned, the cheap removal, right? You want the cut downs, you want the sweepers, you want the go for the throats. And I took a look at Raja's hand. I don't think there's a third land. I think it's a Harvester of Misery, a Cut Down, a Shieldred, and a couple of Frillbacks. But
Yeah.
I did not spot a third land. But keeping on the strength of just having those removal spells, Cut Down, the Harvester of Misery, and the Tranquil Frillback is pretty good because there are the Innkeeper's Talents on the side of Daniel. So keep in mind. But that is end phase questing druid, and that's gonna get Daniel a couple cards here.
Yeah, it gets it going, and it's especially good when you know your opponent is clearly sitting on a hand of all removal. They miss their third land drop. You know they're going to kill your creatures. You may as well get as much card advantage as you can, um, which is maybe the opposite of maybe not not exactly what you expect out of a Grow aggro deck. Say, I got to go fast as possible, but in this case, when you know what you're up against, you're not going to be able to get that game, especially when you're on the draw, as Daniel was here. So now he's getting to gets to think it through a lot of choices, and he starts with playing a land from underneath that questing druid, and looks like still thinking over the follow up. So
Yeah, so
this
that
is a yeah. Go ahead.
that card the second card that Daniel hit there was the Hunter's Talent. Not quite the
Mhm.
same as the Innkeeper's Talent. That one's a little bit different. If we can get that one up on the screen for you guys, but that one is me. I have to read it myself here. Hunter's
Yeah.
Talent. So the first level, when it enters target creature you control, deals damage equal to its power to a creature you don't control, so a little bit of removal. Second level is give something +1/+7 trample when it attacks, and then the third level, draw some cards when you play a big creature. So that's not going to get played here, but it is something worth noting as we see Harvester of Misery taking down the Questing Druid. And yeah, still no third land here for Raja. Is really in a bit of a rough spot. Now, granted, does still have some interaction left over. The cut down, the Deep Cavern Bat, a little bit, to just help build the bridge the gap a little bit, but does need to start hitting those land drops soon.
Yeah, I think he'd really ideally love to hit a black source on his next turn if he could deploy a bat and a removal spell. The thing is, he's at 20 life, right? You might say, "Oh, we're doing okay here." And gosh, to be honest, it's not like Daniel is exactly running away with mana. I think he might be missing a fourth land. No, okay, we have the fourth, but not a fifth, and the fourth came into play tapped. So just the one creature for Daniel. So still the window is open for Raja, but this might be the last chance. I think he missed again. So with that said, it's going to be a deep cavern bat. Take a look at Daniel's hand, see the bad news, or don't see the bad news before it gets hit by a torch tower. So five
Oh my
spells you're
goodness.
staring down.
Yeah, Daniel's hand is just all gas, no brakes. Frenzy, Manifold Mouse, Questing Druid, Challenger, and Innkeeper's Talent. So, yeah, really unfortunate for Raja. Kept the hand on the back of having those two removal spells and the Deep Cavern Bat, but really just unfortunate that was not able to find land number 3. I mean, this is the reverse of what happened game 1, right? Where Daniel kept 4
Yeah.
land, 3 spells, drew 6 lands. Raja kept 2 land, a couple of 1 mana spells, and just never found his third land. So that's magic.
Well, and this was the first turn really that Daniel was able to double spell and really punish Raja, and it was hugely punishing because Raja went for that bat. The bat bit the dust. At the same time, that Daniel was able to add to his board, and it does feel like that was probably the last turn for Raja to get back into it. As we see now that the class hit the battlefield, start getting value like that. So Daniel just really showing off what the prowess Grow aggro deck can do.
Yeah, and here we get to see the interaction between Emberheart Challenger and Innkeeper's Talent. Putting a counter on it, that's going to get Daniel an extra card off of the Emberheart Challenger. That's going to let him play a land from exile, and like we said, still just has a ton of gas left over. Questing Druid, removal spell, more threats, even has the Ridgeline in play. It
Hmm.
seems, Raja's going to slow roll this. That's a go for the
It's a go
throat. I
for the
mean,
throat.
it's a castable spell, but I don't think Raja is looking for castable spells at this point. He's got, a couple of those left over, just really needs to find some lands.
And it looks like that might even be a duress in hand as well over there. It's just a second black source at any point in the last 3 turns would have unlocked a lot of Raja's hand here. And unfortunately, it doesn't come. That's how
Hmm,
it goes.
could
And if
happen.
Daniel is able to finish this off and take it down, and we're not there yet, Raja does have a removal
Oh,
spell in hand, and he still has 14 life to work with. But Daniel's team is already up a game in or up a match in this round. That's the important thing to remember. It's team of trios. You can lose and your teammates can win and carry you, or you can win and your opponents can lose and it can go the opposite direction. But Matthias Hunt took down the match against Max Smith, and that means that Daniel Weiser or Andrew Ellenbogen, who is deep into a third game against Garrick Alford's Jeskai Energy, if either of them win, it's over. The round is over. The team would pick up the victory, move to 6-1. And that's what's on the line here as Daniel stares down 5 lands, plenty of spells in hand to cast, lots of options, and just trying to figure out how to close it off. He's trying to think about how he could lose from this position. Right, Devin?
yeah, I'm not seeing it, Corbin. I mean, we like to say crazier things have happened, but it's very, very tough. One thing I want to mention, I don't know if this if we can relay this information to the players, but I don't remember. Jet was saying that the troll of Khazad-dû might have been swapped from either player. So I don't know if they figured that out, but
Ah.
in any case, yeah, because I think it was Matthias's troll was taken by Mac, but whatever, it's fine. In any case, the manifold mouse coming down, that's going to we can actually target both challengers now, one on each. That's going to trigger Valiant twice and get Daniel quite a few cards here.
Yeah, I mean, look at what this Gruul deck can do. You think of Gruul aggro as with a we saw Swift Spears, right? They're gonna play Swift Spear and they're gonna play Monstrous Rage. But instead, we've seen a bunch of cards that stick around, provide value, give card advantage, like the Questing Druid, the classes keep the gas coming. There's a lot of value built into this Gruul aggro deck, and in a format where something like a Golgari is trying to drown you out of resources and then just rock you to death. This is really gives you legs deep into a game 3 here when you're playing the aggro deck.
Yeah, it's actually kind of wild how many cards this rule deck can draw between Questing Druid, between Emberheart Challenger, the creature lands. Even in the sideboard, there's stuff like Urbrask's Forge, Hunter's Talent can draw cards in the 3rd level, and that is going to do it. Raja has finally decided to give it up, and that it means Daniel Weiser, Andrew Ellenbogen, and Matthias Hunt take the match.
There you go. That is round 7 here in Madison. I'm Corbin Hosser, joined in the booth by my partner for the day, Devin Doomwick O'Donnell. We are bringing you home here in the NRD Championship Series, and you saw one team in the final round of Swiss move to 6-1. We were playing for the top 8 prizes, invites, trophies, pride, bragging rights at dinner, everything on the line here in these last couple of rounds. And we were treated to some excellent play there, really a showcase of standard in that. So that's round 7 here in Madison. We have more magic coming your way, though.